Is Big Brother watching you? Well, if you live in Walsall, apparently he is. According to figures out today, Walsall Council has authorised 215 covert operations since 2008. The council's authorised 215 covert operations since April 2008. Third highest in the country. Big Brother watcher behind this research, and joining me is their director, Deane. Alex, why should we be bothered about these figures? If we're not doing anything wrong, let them watch.
Hi, Ed. Well, I think the reason we should be bothered is that this in no way is proportionate to the things that councils are investigating. I accept that you need to have covert surveillance for things like serious crime and terrorism, which is, of course, the reason most people think we have covert surveillance. What we don't think, don't think most people think we have covert surveillance for, is dog poop not being picked up, or littering like that, or any manner of the uses that councils are currently putting their surveillance to. And there are plenty of examples: leaving the bin out on the wrong day, lying supposedly about the area you live in for school catchment area purposes. I think when you get to that point...
But is this for real, or are we just pulling out isolated examples?
Oh, it's absolutely for real, and I know you want to talk about Walsall. The figures that we've got from all of these authorities are from the authorities that we obtained via Freedom of Information Act. So Walsall, with their 215 separate authorisations of covert surveillance operations in the last 2 years, they include 7 instances of snooping on their own staff last year. They were snooping on their own staff because they thought they were lying about their sick leave. When it gets to this point, I think that the cure is worse than the disease.
The coalition government's already looking at the use of covert surveillance, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, and it's really good news that what they're promising to do, and it seems that the local government association has basically given up on and agreed to, is that magistrates will now have to sign off a warrant before councils can snoop on us, because at the moment they self-authorise. One council officer says to another, "Shall we spy on Mr. Bloggs?" And the other officer says, "Yes." So it is good that that's happening.
Oh, you're saying that they're spying on individuals rather than on situations?
Oh, absolutely. They will monitor individuals for days and sometimes weeks.
Really?
Yes, there's a woman called Jenny Patton who is still fighting her case in Poole, who was monitored for weeks, and the log read subject A, her, met subject B, her daughter, and they went in target vehicle, their car, to location A, the school, and it went on like that for weeks.
Stay there. I want to have a word to Councillor Mike Bird, leader of Walsall Council. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Ed.
Mike, are these figures right? Are you really watching people?
Yes, we are, but unfortunately, the gentleman, Mr. Deane, is it not? He's very economical with the truth, isn't he? He's put only 7 cases. In actual fact, it was 8 cases of checking on staff who were absent on sick leave when insurance claims for injured parties. What he forgets to add, Ed, is there are 93 cases of antisocial behaviour. There is 72 cases of housing benefit fraud, which would have cost this council £4 million. He forgets to tell you there are 42 trading standards, which is age restriction of test purchases of knives, cigarettes, alcohol, fireworks, counterfeit goods, fly tipping. That's what we use it for, Ed, and we only use it as an extreme case. We have used it only 8 times in relation to staff, but the rest of it is going on enforcement, it's going on protecting our citizens and saving their council tax money.
Are they a last resort, Mike?
Yes.
What process do you use to decide when you're going to use surveillance like this?
This is where senior officers in charge of normally public protection, they don't use these powers lightly, and it is absolutely guaranteed as a last resort, Ed.
Could Walsall Council do without covert surveillance operations?
Well, everybody could do without them, but having said that, you have to take the consequences, and the consequences are there will be more benefit cheats, there will be more council tax ratepayers' money lost, there will be more fly tipping, there will be more counterfeit goods. I understand quite rightly that the government are looking at this, but they have to look at the success and basically say, is there a better way forward? And what's being suggested is that we get a court order. Well, if that's the case, we do that too.
So you've got no apologies to make at all?
Absolutely none whatsoever. Matter of fact, when I was told we were third, I thought, well, perhaps we should be first. Because at the end of the day, we can prove categorically to anybody, absolutely anybody, that we have cost-effective, value for money by doing this.
All right, don't go away. Alex Deane?
Well, I mean, no apologies from the Leader of the Council. This is why council shouldn't have this power in the first place. I accept that if there are things being investigated by the councils are true, they're all wrong. It's wrong that people behave in the way that he's describing. But none of those things justify covert surveillance. If an offence is serious enough to warrant covert surveillance, it shouldn't be in the hands of the council. It should be in the hands of the police, and it should be restricted to serious crime and or terrorism, not the man from the council going around with a telephoto lens.
How do you respond to that, Mike?
Well, in actual fact, I consider that this government having got to make these cuts, one of the biggest problems we have across the country is benefit fraud. And that's just not local in Walsall. It is endemic across the country, and it costs hundreds of millions of pounds. And so therefore I would argue that is exactly the use of the RIPA, because whenever you see these claims in the court that the perpetrators have been convicted, then you will see that the use of covert surveillance is the very reason they're in court.
Alex?
This council ought to take a page out of the book of the best practice example of
Why?
Bradford. Because Bradford, since 2007, have been writing to people saying, we are looking at a report that you are cheating on your benefits or you are making a noise nuisance. That is to say, I suppose, overt surveillance. They were letting people know they were watching, and compliance went up. You don't need to snoop on people in order to crack down on the problems this councillor is identifying.
What do you reckon, Mike? Is that a way around it or not?
We do both, actually, Ed. We try to educate people that we are looking for them. But as I said, and I repeat this, that we use our surveillance only when it's absolutely necessary and our staff are fully trained in using the powers. But that's the ultimate thing. It is the last resort. But we try everything. And to say we actually covertly look at people leaving the bins out, that's absolute rubbish. And I think the gentleman ought to stop the scaremongering and actually look into the figures and see what we've done as a council. £4 million of council taxpayers' money. That's my money and every resident of Walsall's money.
Scaremongering, Alex?
No, Mike should try this for scaremongering. Under the regulations that his council are investigating people, when you're found innocent by the council watching you, there is no obligation for the council to tell you that you are being watched. So, Mike, your council has watched people hundreds of times in the last 2 years and then not told them you were watching them when they were found innocent. That's true, isn't it?
No, it's not true. It's not true. You're quoting figures now that do not exist. Again,
you've used RIPA 215 times.
You've got the Freedom of Information figures that I've just quoted, and those are actual facts. Yes, it is possible. There have been some isolated instances where people have been watched and it hasn't happened. But I think those are outweighed categorically by the number of good that's been done by using the powers.
Mike, you're not listening. When you find someone to be innocent when you've watched them, you don't tell them we've been spying on your family, do you? They'll never know that you were watching.
Well, that's the same with any covert surveillance. Even if the police are doing it, they don't turn around and say to people, oh, by the way, we've been watching you. We thought you was doing so-and-so.
So you're comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable. I'm absolutely 100% comfortable.
Alex, Mike, can I thank you both very much for enlightening us a little further. Thanks all.